Without further ado, I would like to introduce our first presenter for this afternoon, and Scarlett from Student Financials.
Thank you very much, Carol. First of all, I want to say congratulations. This is a big deal. I myself going to have a Panther coming this fall, so I am on the same boat as you are, and I'm super excited and super proud of this great accomplishment. So congratulations. So my name is Scarlett Franz-Blau, and I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about our offices of student financials and the Office of Financial Aid, or the one-stop office. We do tend to get a little bit of confusion between the two departments, so my goal today is to answer some of the most common questions that we get and clarify some of the most common confusions that we get between the two departments. I currently work at Student Financials as a student accounts manager, but prior to that, I did work in the one-stop office for a number of years, and prior to that, in the financial aid office as well for a number of years. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to jump right in. I have a PowerPoint presentation that I would like to share with you, and then we can go from there. I will try to get to some questions at the end, so hopefully we'll be able to, we'll have time to go over some questions. If we don't, we'll try to get to your questions once we are, through the chat, through the Q&A section. So like I said, One-Stop Office is the customer service side of the admissions, registration, and financial aid office. So in the One-Stop Office, they don't necessarily process anything, but they answer all the questions from any of those departments. So when you are calling somebody regarding admissions or registration, you are speaking with a one-stop agent. At Student Financials, we focus on Florida prepaid, third-party payments, the all-around billing and account finances from our students. So you can come and visit us when we're able to see you in person again. Sorry, this jumped. At either campus, BBC or MMC, we are on the same floor in either one of those campuses. You can find Student Financials or One Stop in the same area. This is so that, we're facilitating the access of our students so that they can come and see us all in the same spot. You can also reach us via telephone, email, or chat. Student Financials had just implemented their chat services, so you can actually chat with us as well. To find out hours of operations or how to get through the chat, you can do it through the onestop.fiu.edu website. Financial aid has a dedicated phone line, which has helped tremendously for students and parents to be able to have a little bit easier access to financial aid questions. So any questions related to the FAFSA application, grants, loans, and the verification process, you can direct it to the number that you see on screen. That's the only number for financial aid, which, like I said, it has helped a lot with just, managing the most amount of calls possible. This is very important. Once your son or daughter starts at FIU, their information is theirs, meaning that even if they're dependent upon you, you are not allowed, we're not able to disclose due to privacy regulations. We're not able to disclose any of the information from their account, from their record, from their file to you as the parent, or anybody for that matter, without the student giving us permission. So what does that mean? For in-person interactions only, students can submit a FERPA form in which they are dedicating or they are naming the person that they would like to have access to their account. Of course, right now we're not having any interactions in person, but in the future we will resume these interactions. And that means that at that point, the person that the student has designated with that access needs to bring a picture ID. Like I said, this form is only valid for in-person interaction. So that means if you come on campus and you want to speak with someone and your son or daughter is not present, then you need to have been, your student needs to have submitted this form and your name needs to be on it in order for any of us to be able to have a conversation about the record. For now, if you want to have access to their portal, you can request for them to give you delegated access. So delegated access is a feature that would allow you to have your own portal in which you have your own username and password and sign on, and then you can go and you can look at many different aspects of the student's account. The student will determine what kind of access you have. So they can say, well, I want my parents to have access to make a payment on my behalf, but I don't want my parents to have access to see my grades. So it depends on what they are asking or what they allow you, but this is great in the sense that you will have your own username or password to be able to get in, and it would look like the student's portal. This is just one of the many things that our students are able to do from their portal, under student tools. This is what the portal will look like. It has different tiles. So as you can see, it has financial account. That will be the student financials records and customer accounts, and the financial aid tile as well, and student tools. One of the most important things is going to be the task tile. Under the task tile, you're going to find holds or to-do list items. It is very important to monitor this because any holds might potentially prevent registration. Any to-do list items might be preventing the awarding of financial aid. So it's very important to click on the details, read the instructions on how to address a particular hold, what department placed it, what are the steps to follow in order for that hold to be released. You can also check what services are impacted. Sometimes a hold will prevent registration, but it won't prevent many other things, or vice versa. So it is important to know what the hold is actually preventing. Keep in mind that if you have to-do list items related to verification for financial aid purposes, once documents are submitted and the link disappears from the student account, it might take another 7 to 10 business days for the file to be verified. So it's very important to address these items promptly and to read the instructions so that you're submitting everything that is being asked at that time. Just to recap a little bit, it is very important to go ahead and monitor their portal, the FIU email, check the to-do list item, make sure that you're on top of that. It's very important also to allow for time for processing, especially for those verification items. So as soon as you submit, as soon as you see the item pop up, read it, see what it is that you need, and then submit it so that you can have enough time to have all that processed. Once the file is verified, if you were selected for verification, any aid that is grants or scholarship will be accepted for the student already. Any loans will have to be accepted by the student. So this is going to be under the financial aid tile under accept decline awards. It's going to show you the different aid years. So right now, if you have a student starting in the summer, it's going to be under the 2020 aid year, any awards that they've been presented. And if you have a student that's starting in the fall, then it's going to be under 2021 aid year. So that matters as far as what semester they're starting. A little bit more about grants and loans and what the difference between the two of them. Grants are gift aid, meaning once you receive it, you don't have to pay it back. Most grants are based on financial need, and they are based on enrollment. That means that we have to verify the enrollment before any grants can be dispersed into the student account. Most grants are based on full-time enrollment, which is 12 credits, but some of them will prorate if the student is enrolled in less than full-time. Loans, of course, have to be repaid. The student has to go into their portal and accept them. And if the student has never borrowed student loans before, then they have to do a master promissory note and an entrance counseling for the loans to be able to disperse. There's a minimum requirement of 6 credits in order for the loans to disperse. So even though most grants need to, are based on full-time enrollment, the loans will be based, or the disbursement of the loan will be based on 6, which is half-time. depending on the academic level of the student, you may have different eligibility for loans. Now, most people don't want to have the conversation about the loans, but I always like to say, even if you don't believe that you're going to be eligible for grants when you submit your FAFSA application, I would advise you to do it anyway, because loans are there so that you may utilize them in case of an emergency, or if you just need them as is. So it's a lot easier if you are going to be selected for verification, or you're going to go through the application process, to go through the application process. And if you only get offer loans and you don't need them, you don't have to accept them. But if you do need them, then it's going to be a lot quicker for you to be able to access those funds than if you haven't submitted an application for FAFSA at all. So I typically say apply anyway. And if you don't need it, great. But if you need it, they're there for you. Like I mentioned before, financial aid awards, especially grants and scholarships, are going to base on full-time enrollment. For the summer, however, for those people that are starting in early fall or summer B, financial aid will be based on 6 credits for the summer. So for the summer is half-time, but for fall and spring semester is going to be full-time. Scholarships like Bright Futures is not awarded via the FAFSA. The application for Bright Futures is through the high school, and it gets either you're eligible or not. The eligibility gets determined while still in high school or before entering college. So at this moment, most people should know whether or not they're eligible for Bright Futures. And if you are still missing information, you still have time to submit the information to the state. So, there's like a little bit of time between when you're done with high school and before you start college. It's until June 30th that you can still submit new updated exam information or any reporting of service hours that you might be missing in order for you to qualify for Bright Futures. We also have scholarships, and we actually have a dedicated office for scholarships. So if you look on the One Stop website and you search for scholarships, there's contact information there, but they have a university-wide scholarship application or a database on FIUacademicworks.com. You can find many scholarships there that are there for students to apply. So it's a very good database. So this is one of the things that we encounter that causes a lot of confusion between our two departments for students and their families, and that is the difference between a disbursement and a refund. We at FIU refer to the disbursement of aid when the charges are going to be satisfied by the financial aid, meaning financial aid releases the funds get applied against charges and fees in the student account. That is the disbursement. The refund is if that financial aid is in excess of your charges and fees, then you're going to be issued a refund. So that is the difference. When we give disbursement deadlines, that means that financial aid is releasing the funds to cover charges and fees. Refunds will be processed between 3 to 4 business days after a disbursement is processed in a student account. Please make sure that you have your son or daughter set up direct deposit, especially if you see that they have financial aid in excess of their charges, because that's going to expedite the access to those funds. You can just put any bank account, it's super easy to do, super fast, and you will have access to the funds within 24 to 48 business hours from the moment in which the disbursement and the application of the refund happens in the account. So it's the best thing that you can do to go ahead and set up the direct deposit. Usually students are going to have a link in their account that's going to guide them to do it, but it's relatively quick. So having said that, especially for those students that are starting now in Summer B, you're going to need to have the FAFSA application for 2019-2020. FAFSA usually awards fall, spring, and summer semesters. So what's happening is that for summer, you're going to need the FAFSA for the prior academic year, And for the fall, you're going to need the FAFSA for the upcoming academic year. So that means that right now, a student that's starting in the summer needs a FAFSA for 1920 and a FAFSA for 2021. Also, keep in mind, October 1st, the FAFSA for the next academic year will open. And it's the best thing that you can do is submit a FAFSA early, because there are institutional aid that only students that submitted an application early and are considered meeting the priority deadline will qualify for. So it's very important to go ahead and address that as soon as possible. So right now, you might have a FAFSA for 1920. You need to do the FAFSA for 2021. That is so that you can have aid for this summer, fall, spring, and next summer. And then as soon as October 1st hit, you can go ahead and submit your FAFSA again for 2021-22. So it's always to stay ahead of the game when it comes to the application. If you submitted a FAFSA application and for some reason have not updated the application to show that your student is coming to FIU, very important to make sure that you have added FIU school code to the application. Our school code is 009635. You need to make sure that on the FAFSA it shows FIU on it, because if you do not add FIU, then the file is not going to come to FIU so that we can go ahead and award the student. Okay, so when you are going to be charged for your tuition, once you register for classes, you're going to see the charges for tuition. The tuition, because we are a public research university, you're going to see the tuition charge in two different lines. It's going to say, one is going to say tuition and the other one's going to say tuition differential. The 153.28 is the tuition part and the 52.29 is the tuition differential. It all adds up to the same 205.57 per credit hour, which is our tuition fee. For in-state students, undergraduate students. As you can see, the fees for non-Florida residents is different. But we still have to make that distinction because we have to show where our research monies are coming from. But as far as the amount, you're always being charged the same amount, which will be 205.57. Besides that, you're going to see some mandatory fees that have to do with transportation, has to do with health services. So those are mandatory fees that every student has to pay every semester, except for the photo ID, which is only paid once per academic year. So most likely for the students that are starting in the summer, they'll see it for the summer and they'll see it again for the fall, but then they won't see it charged again until the next fall semester. For those of you who have Florida prepaid, you need to make sure that the date of birth and the social security number of the student is correct on the record at FIU. If that is correct and it matches the information that Florida prepaid has, there's nothing else that you need to do. Florida prepaid will link to the account. You're gonna see after the student enrolls and charges are posted, within 3 to 4 days, you're gonna see that Florida prepaid posts in the account. Like I said, as long as date of birth and social security are correct, an FIU record is going to do it automatically. You don't have to submit your card. You don't have to reach out. Now, if you do not want to use the benefit, the Florida prepaid benefit, then you do have to submit a form. You have to opt out of using the credits. And if you're going to opt out, just so you know, you need to submit the form every semester that you're going to be opting out before the payment deadline, so that it can be adjusted and you'll have enough time to make sure that you have secure payment. Some people like to utilize financial aid or Bright Futures in order to cover classes, and they like to save their Florida prepaid for later, or maybe you can transfer it to another child. Another son or daughter. So this is why some people would want to opt out of Florida prepaid. If you don't want to opt out, you can have your Florida prepaid post to the account, and then your financial aid will still post, so that you can use a combination of these, which are your funds, with the financial aid or scholarships that have been granted. Right now, the ways to make a payment for your tuition are limited because we are not on campus, so we're not able to access our kiosk or our wonderful tellers and cashiers. But it is relatively simple to make a payment online and is free if you pay with an e-check. Now, there is a charge if you pay with a credit card or a debit card online. But if you pay with an e-check, which is you get your account number and routing number and enter that information, there's no charge for that. If you utilize your debit card, is usually, your debit card will be linked to a bank account. So if you grab the information from that bank account, the routing and account number from the debit card, not the debit card number, but the routing and bank account number from the debit card, you can still select to make a payment with an e-check, and that transaction will have no fee attached to it. So we definitely want to encourage you to pay with an e-check so that you don't have any transaction fees attached to the payment. So this is very important. So sort of like navigating the payment deadline. Payment deadline for the summer B session is going to be June 30th. That's going to be any account balance, any difference between financial aid and the charges will have to be covered by that day. Just so you know, if you accept loans, loans will disperse prior to the first day of classes. Grants and scholarships disperse after the add-drop period. And that is because those we need to confirm enrollment before they can be dispersed. So you are going to see that you have anticipated aid in the account and then you have a balance, that is due. As long as the anticipated aid is greater or the same as the balance, you don't have to make a payment. But of course, you have to make sure that you are eligible for the pending financial aid based on the credits that they're taking or something. You going the extra step to make sure that the actual pending aid will materialize is always a good step. But if you are meeting the requirements, then there's nothing to do. If you have, for example, Bright Future Scholarship and the Bright Future Scholarship shows as anticipated aid and your student is enrolled in 6 credits, then there's nothing to do but to wait for disbursement. The order in which financial aid is dispersed, meaning the loans go first, then the grants, that's not something that we can change. You can change it by not accepting the loans until later if you wanted to utilize the loans later, but that means that you have to have something covering the tuition by the payment deadline. So once you are in the account in the portal, you can take a look and you can see what is it that your charges are, compare it to the anticipated date for the semester that's upcoming. And then if your charges are more than the financial aid that's anticipated, then you have to make a payment by the payment deadline. You get the difference and you pay that. If your financial aid is greater than the charges that you have in your account, then you know that once the financial aid disperses, then you most likely will be getting a refund from the financial aid. But any adjustments, anything that has to happen, any payments need to be done by the payment deadline, even though the financial aid will not have dispersed by then. But you need to make sure that any sort of like questions regarding that have been clear prior to that date. We do typically have payment plans for the A and C sessions only. We don't have B session payment plans. For the fall and spring, our payment plans can be up to 4 installments, 4 months. And for the summer, for the A and C session in the summer, it's usually 2 installments. One thing that's very important is that tuition payment plan does not look at your anticipated aid to determine the amount of the monthly payments. So it's excluding the financial aid from determining how much your installments are going to be. So sometimes you're going to see that paying the difference between what your financial aid is and the charges is going to be better or less amount than the first installment of the payment plan. So the payment plan is not for everybody, but it's a great relief when you don't have enough financial aid. It is a very good option that offers you flexibility with the 4 installments. but it's also good to know that it won't take in consideration the anticipated aid. Once the aid disperses, it can be applied to the installments of the payment plan, but the total amount of what the payments are going to be are not going to be looking at anticipated aid to make that determination. Lastly, I want to remind you that it's very important for your students to know the dates. When is the last day to add or drop a class without liability? When is the last day to pay? All of those dates are important, and it is the student's responsibility to meet those deadlines, to make sure that they're dropping their courses by those deadlines in order for them to not have liabilities or further charges applied to their account. Typically, we have these little pamphlets all over the university, but right now you can access this information at onestop.fiu.edu.